And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Welcome to The Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast.
Flibbity-jibbity nonsense.
I thought it was terrific.
Not just big, it's yeah.
Let's go.
Welcome. Thanks for listening to The Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast. My name is Jeff Morey, and I am your host. In this week's show, it's time to peer back down the rabbit hole a little bit and talk about a long-standing popular conspiracy theory. This theory has been long suggested and involves my very favorite sport, football. I am a die-hard football fan, both college and pro, but especially professional football. I love both watching football on TV or in person, and I love playing fantasy football. In fact, I love it so much that I'm actually the commissioner of the Fantasy Football League at my work. So what is this popular theory that I speak of, you ask? Is the NFL rigged? Well, before we ask the question and discuss, let's do a quick roundup of this week's big news stories. As most everyone has probably heard by now, United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was murdered outside of the New York Hilton Midtown Hotel on Wednesday. According to New York police, the suspect shot Thompson in a brazen, targeted attack around 6:46 a.m. Eastern Time, moments before United Healthcare's annual investor conference. As of the airing of this show, a manhunt is still underway to try to find the suspect. Police have searched a hostel where they believe the suspect may have been staying, saying that they found a phone, bottle of water, and a live shell casing with the words delay and deposed on them. Police were able to get a partial fingerprint off the water bottle, but said that it was smudged. On Friday, the NYPD announced that it had found the backpack of the gunman somewhere near the park carousel. Multiple images of the suspected gunman have been released, one while the suspect was flirting with a hostile staff member and others riding a bike near Central Park. They have been piecing together a minute-by-minute timeline of the murder and his escape thereafter. Thompson is survived by his wife and 2 children. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and colleagues. Probably the biggest news story this week is the presidential pardon issued to Hunter Biden by President Joe Biden, sparking outrage from both sides of the political aisle after repeated claims by Joe Biden that he would not pardon his son Hunter. Joe Biden issued Hunter a sweeping pardon, which means Hunter will no longer have to appear in court over federal gun charges and tax fraud. This surprises, I think, absolutely no one, as crooked Joe Biden races to send as much money as he can to Ukraine and will more than likely issue preemptive pardons for people widely believed to be targeted by President Trump upon his return to the White House. Some of such people that may be issued a preemptive pardon are rumored to be Liz Cheney, Anthony Fauci, and Adam Schiff. I don't think the vast majority of us can wait for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to get out of office. On Wednesday, the father of Jordan Neely, a homeless man who died after being put in a chokehold by Daniel Penny, a 25-year-old Marine who was riding a subway car in New York City, filed a civil lawsuit against Penny in addition to the criminal charges Penny is already facing. Penny was charged with recklessly and negligently killing Neely, even though Neely had an arrest warrant at the time and was high on K2, a synthetic marijuana drug that acts as a stimulant, and had a long criminal record that including assaulted a 67-year-old woman at another subway station. It was announced Friday that the jury has dismissed the manslaughter charge and that they would return next week to deliberate on the second and lesser charge, criminally negligent homicide. The jury could not come to a unanimous decision regarding the manslaughter charge, so Assistant Manhattan DA Daphne Urin asked that the manslaughter charge be dismissed so that the jury will only have to deliberate on the second charge. As President Trump continues to build his cabinet and begin his transition into the White House, world leaders are scrambling to make changes to their policies to try to avoid tariffs and other political action from Trump. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau flew down to Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort this week to meet with Trump concerning his proposed tariffs in Canada if they failed to do their part to help secure the northern border address the trade deficit, and meet any of Trump's other demands. According to witnesses who overheard the conversation, Trudeau reportedly told Trump that his tariffs would kill Canada's economy. Trump supposedly responded by telling Trudeau that maybe Canada should join the U.S. and become the 51st state. He even suggested that Trudeau could become governor of the new state and that Canada could even be split into a conservative and a liberal state. I'm admittedly not a diehard MAGA always Trumper, but man, I respect the guy for standing up to these foreign governments and officials like a true leader and president should do. Speaking of Canada, a brave man in Ontario leapt onto a polar bear when it lunged at his wife earlier this week. The couple encountered the bear around 5 a.m. when they left their home to look for their dogs. The man reportedly had serious but non-life-threatening injuries, and a neighbor shot the animal and it later died from its injuries. In other world news, French President Emmanuel Macron said he will name a new prime minister in the coming days this week after the resignation of former PM Michel Barnier, following a no-confidence vote in Parliament. On Wednesday, French MPs voted to remove Barnier from his position just 3 months after he was appointed by Macron. The vote was the first time in 60 years an official had been voted down by Parliament in a move Macron labeled unprecedented. All right, that's what's happening in our country and around the world this week. So, before I re-ask the question and the topic of this show, a little legal disclaimer. This is an opinion show. I do not definitively claim nor imply that everything I say is the truth and the whole truth, so help me God. So NFL or anyone else that might be listening that will consider what we discuss on this show to be slander or anything of the sort, this is merely a conspiracy theory that we will be discussing. Nothing more, nothing less. I will offer a lot of compelling evidence here, but zero definitive proof. So people take it just as that. A discussion about the possibility and about some of the coincidences and anomalies we will see along the way. So, with that being said, let's talk about some of the things that make you ask the question. The NFL was formed in 1920 as the American Professional Football League and was renamed the National Football League in 1922. In 1960, a rival league called the American Football League was formed and began to compete with the NFL for television contracts, free agents, and draft picks. We can begin to ask the question even this far back, as the two leagues agreed to merge by 1970, and from 1966 to 1970, the very first Super Bowls were played between the top two teams from each respective league. And what I'm sure was just a convenient coincidence, the National Football League won the first Super Bowls in 1967 and 1968, and the American Football League won the next two Super Bowls in 1969 and 1970. I'm sure that this is just a strange coincidence that both leagues each won 2 consecutive years, especially with the American Football League winning it the last 2 before the merger. They wouldn't want to try to keep AFL fans excited and involved, would they? Anyways, the two leagues would merge and form what we now know today as the modern-day NFL. As it stands in 2024, what is now the NFC, formerly the National Football League, is dead tied with the AFC, formerly the American Football League, with a perfectly even 27-27 record for Super Bowl wins by conference. I know, just another coincidence. Well, right now I'm just talking about coincidences. Promise I'll give you more than coincidences later. One of the biggest things that's always stood out to me and made me ask the question is the long history of the dynasty teams. Let's look back a ways and start with what most consider to be the first run of the dynasty teams. From 1960 to 1967, the Green Bay Packers played for, at the time, NFL 6 times, NFL title 6 times, with only one loss at the hands of the Eagles in 1960. They won 3 consecutive titles, including the first 2 Super Bowls. Since then, no team has ever won 3 consecutive Super Bowls. From 1970 to 1979, the Dallas Cowboys played in 5 Super Bowls, winning 2 of them. It was during this time that the Cowboys reached their greatest heights in popularity and were dubbed America's team. The 1971 Cowboys beat the Dolphins in the Super Bowl that year, defeating the vaunted Miami Dolphins that had been undefeated the previous season, still to this day the only team to finish a regular season and playoff Super Bowl run and never record a loss. Great storyline there, huh? But this wouldn't be the franchise's only dynasty run. From 1991 to 1995, the Cowboys would again dominate the league, winning 3 Super Bowls during this span. The Cowboys were and are still the most popular and financially lucrative team in the biggest sports league in the world to this day. The next big dynasty run was the Miami Dolphins during part of the same time period, from 1970 to 1974. Following that, the Pittsburgh Steelers logged an 80-22-1 record, won 6 division titles, and became the first team to win 4 Super Bowls from 1972 to 1979. The Oakland Raiders had a great run from 1967 to 1985, winning 11 division titles, 15 playoff berths, an AFL title, and 3 Super Bowls. Next up is the San Francisco 49ers from 1981 to 1984, with that famous run with star quarterback Steve Young and Joe Montana and receiver Jerry Rice. The Washington Commanders, then Redskins, had a great run from 1982 to 1991, winning 17 playoff games, 4 conference titles, and all 3 of the franchise's Super Bowls. Skipping ahead to modern day real quick before I discuss probably the biggest and definitely the most controversial dynasty team of all time. Of course, there's the 2020 to current Kansas City Chiefs, who always seem to get those crucial calls that either move the chains or even worse, determine the outcome of games. Of course, conspiracy theorists such as myself will tie their winning and seemingly favorable attention from the NFL to Taylor Swift and Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce, a relationship which undoubtedly has brought countless new fans to the league via Swift and her cult-like fan base. But probably most famous of all, of course, is the infamous 2001 to 2018 New England Patriots. During this time span, the Patriots won 7 Super Bowls on the arm of Tom Brady and head coach Bill Belichick. No matter if you're a Patriots fan or not, the Patriots were unquestionably extremely controversial, with cheating scandals and the infamous tuck rule, which cost the Oakland Raiders a Super Bowl in 2022. During the game, Raiders cornerback Charles Woodson tackled Tom Brady, causing what was believed to be at the moment, and a lot of people, including myself, still believe to be, a fumble. If ruled a fumble, it would have sealed a win for the Raiders. Instead, the call was overturned and the Patriots proceeded to move into field goal range and eventually win the game in overtime. The play is so controversial to this day, John Gruden, then the Raiders coach, even referenced it in his introductory press conference when he rejoined the Raiders in 2018. And Tom Brady himself has even suggested it was a fumble. Former Raiders offensive lineman Lincoln Kennedy, who was on the field for the controversial call, said on a sports talk radio show in 2015 that he heard Raiders cornerback Eric Allen tell teammates before the play that he heard Brady in the timeout say he was going to throw the slant. Furthermore, he said another player told teammates during the review that, quote, "They're going to take it away. We're the Raiders and they're taking this long." Kennedy even suggested that he has heard rumors during the review that officials got a call from New York, where the NFL's headquarters is located, encouraging officials to apply a rule no one had ever heard of. One thing is for sure, as a longtime fan of the NFL and football in general, I can't even count the countless number of times that the New England Patriots seem to get very preferential treatment from NFL officiating crews. I have some buddies that are Patriots fans, and they freely admitted during the Tom Brady years that the refs always seem to give the Patriots the favorable calls. But why? Why would NFL officials want to unfairly influence NFL games? For those who don't know, NFL referees are part-time employees and do not work full-time year-round for the NFL. But most of them aren't blue-collar working guys like me. Oh no, NFL refs come from various professions, including bankers, tax managers, pilots, and even a federal agent. So most of these guys are higher-profile, influential guys, which means most are well-paid, even before they put on a uniform. So money is clearly a driving factor for a lot of these guys. I don't have enough time on the show to even begin to scratch the surface on how many blatant bad calls there have been, such as the tuck rule, over the years and to this day that have influenced and even changed the outcome of NFL games. Anyone who used to watch WWE back in the day and believed pro wrestling was real before it was revealed by Vince McMahon in 1989, when testifying before the New Jersey State Senate that wrestling was not in fact a competitive sport and was in fact scripted, and then became aware that the referees were the ones who basically orchestrate and run the entire production in the ring. Well, it's been suggested the same is true for the NFL. Personally, I don't think that they run a script per se, but I do believe that they are the ones who do encourage and sway calls, game flow, and even at times players to a suggested or desired outcome. Just my 2 cents. Just think about WWE and relate that to football. It would make the most sense. Former Raiders offensive lineman Lincoln Riley isn't the only former NFL player to suggest that the NFL is rigged. Former Houston Texans running back Arian Foster famously made headlines when he went on Barstool Sports and claimed that the NFL was indeed scripted and that players actually practiced the script versus actually practicing plays, play calls, etc. I've seen the interview. Some people say that he was joking and it was pure satire. Some say he was being honest and speaking the truth. All I can say is listen to the interview yourself and make your own judgment. Some other notable former NFL players who have alluded that the NFL is rigged include former Bears running back Benny Cunningham, who said, quote, "The NFL is scripted, but they make us sign something so we can't go into detail. Tired of holding back. Who wants the full story?" End quote. Former Cleveland Browns offensive lineman Joe Thomas, who said, quote, "We're talking about a different NFL now. Before it was more about the game. Now it's such an entertainment business. It's turning into the WWE, really. It's like the Vince McMahon stuff. Basically, Goodell is like Vince McMahon." End quote. And former Houston Oilers running back and Hall of Famer Earl Campbell, who said, quote, "And we all know now that we're grown men that wrestling's fake. Well, football is not played like it was when I played." End quote. Some pretty interesting words from some pretty notable players. Now let's talk about a subject on this topic that I have and absolutely never will understand. And that is what is called compensatory picks. Compensatory picks are draft picks that are awarded to specific NFL teams by the league when those teams or team has lost more or better players in free agency than it acquires. Supposedly, this system is in place, just like the draft system where the Super Bowl team picks last and the team with the worst record picks first, to try to keep every team competitive and fair and give every team a legitimate chance to win and succeed. The problem with this is that I haven't seen anyone that I can totally explain how or what the formula is for determining compensatory picks. I have seen articles from news outlets have tried to explain it, but even myself as a nearly lifelong football fan can't make heads or tails of it. Some have suggested the NFL just makes it up each year however they want. Again here, this is only a 15 to 45 minute show, so I don't have enough time to crunch numbers for hours and go over how much of a difference this has made in helping teams. Especially very frequently, great teams get even better. I'll just leave you with one example for you to digest. Tom Brady, the arguably greatest NFL player of all time, was selected with a compensatory pick given to the New England Patriots in the 2000 NFL Draft because they lost their punter to the Jets in free agency. Their punter. Just let that sink in for a minute. Okay, moving on. Now let's talk about stats and how they more than often always seem to fit the narrative of what the NFL wants people to see. I remember just this year watching football and remember seeing the NFL promoting National Tight End Day, which was week 8 this year, which was games from October 24th to October 28th. As I said earlier, I am a huge fantasy guy, and early in the season, tight ends have been having, for the most part, a down year, not scoring nearly as many points as in 2023. Funny how NFL tight end week hits, and tight ends all of a sudden have a scoring renaissance. I mean, look at these stats. George Kittle, 6 receptions, 128 yards, and a touchdown. Travis Kelce, 10 receptions, 90 yards, and a touchdown. Cade Otton, 9 receptions, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. David Njoku, 5 receptions, 61 yards, and a touchdown. Kyle Pitts, 4 receptions, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns. Sam Laporta, 6 receptions, 48 yards, and a touchdown. Dalton Kincaid, 4 receptions, 31 yards, and a touchdown. Trey McBride, 9 receptions, 124 yards. Evan Ingram, 4 receptions, 36 yards, and a touchdown. Mark Andrews, 5 receptions, 36 yards, and a touchdown. Are you freaking kidding me? You can't make this stuff up, people. Oh, and one more stat to throw at. Anyone remember Super Bowl 47? The year was 2013. After winning the AFC and going 10-6, the Baltimore Ravens were set to face off against the 11-4 NFC champion San Francisco 49ers. Not only was it the first ever brother versus brother Super Bowl, John Harbaugh, the head coach of the Ravens, versus Jim Harbaugh, the head coach of the 49ers, which in itself is a narrative that the NFL obviously would love to push. At halftime, mysteriously, the power went out. Number one, in all my research, I have not been able to find any other instance in which the power has gone out during an NFL game that was not related to weather. Number two, the score at halftime was 28-6 Ravens. It has been continuously suggested that the NFL purposely sabotaged the power in order to prevent a lopsided game. As all of you know, the Super Bowl is the biggest advertising day for the NFL, with current TV commercial ads for the Super Bowl running as high as $7 million for a 30-second TV commercial. $7 million. So ask yourself, what happens if advertisers spend that kind of money for a second half and they lose, say, 50% of their audience? What do you think that an industry giant such as Budweiser, Frito-Lay, Verizon, State Farm, or others will say if they lost that kind of viewership? Do you think they will continue to advertise in subsequent years if they feel like they will run the risk of another blowout game? What happens if everyone wants to advertise in the first half and nobody wants to buy ad space in the coveted second half time slots? Do we really need to speculate on that, people? It's funny, too, because according to a spokesman for the local utility company in New Orleans, the outage appeared to originate in a failure of equipment maintained by stadium staff. Really? Now let's talk about the 2021 to 2022 season. After winning the NFC with a 12-5 record, the Los Angeles Rams faced the 10-7 AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals in Super Bowl 56. It was a competitive game with 3 lead changes and what most people would believe to be a normal competitive Super Bowl. So what's so interesting about this game? Well, it isn't the game that I'm interested in, it's a team. Specifically the Los Angeles Rams. Now this is really diving deep into the rabbit hole here, but I want you to think about this for a second. If you aren't familiar with the Rams colors, then Google up an image of their logo or uniforms. Symbolism is such a huge part of our world and culture today. If you don't believe me, Google Masonic symbolism in Washington, D.C. This game was played on February 13th, 2022. Just 11 days later, Russia would invade Ukraine in 2022. Pull back up that Rams logo or uniform you found on Google. Now, I want you to Google Ukrainian flag. Look familiar? I have absolutely zero proof to say that this was manufactured in order to provide optics and maybe even sympathy for Ukraine. But trust me when I tell you, I'm not the only one who noticed this. So fresh off coming off the second most watched Super Bowl of all time at the time, it sure would be a good angle to view the good guys and the winners in blue and gold. Here are a couple more narratives for you to consider. The New Orleans Saints winning the Super Bowl just a few years after being absolutely devastated by Hurricane Katrina, and the Falcons and the Rams both making it to the Super Bowl a year before opening their new billion-dollar stadiums. What better way to excite their fan bases than to be right there, almost winning a Super Bowl, and being a player or two away from having a Super Bowl winning team? There are literally so many narratives that I could point out. It is mind-blowing. These, to me, are just some of the best examples in my opinion. All right, last point to consider. Money always leads back to money. Consider how big of a business sports betting has become. BetMGM, DraftKings, Fanatics Sportsbook, FanDuel, Caesars Sportsbook, Bet365, the list goes on and on. There's a great article that I read online from Ohio Today that talked with and quoted Dr. Jim Strode, a professor at Ohio University's College of Business, where he discussed in great detail sports betting and how the NFL has greatly benefited from it. In the article, Stroud talks about not only how the NFL has been able to get more organizations to sponsor teams and advertise, but also how sports betting has led to an increase in NFL games. It's not just number of games in the season, but also the frequency of games and days, nights per week. He also says that the NFL is doing a great job leveraging sports betting to market games that may not necessarily be marquee, and that gaming, sports betting, and gambling provide an increase in interest for games that otherwise would not get as much attention. I myself stay away from sports betting, but I have a bunch of friends that are diehard bettors and a couple that spend a bunch of money every year placing bets. Okay, that's my spill and that's my case for you. Again, legal disclosure here. I'm not saying that the NFL is definitively rigged. I can't 100% factually prove that, but man, the evidence is compelling. If you ask me, I think the NFL definitely uses its referees to strongly influence its games. Now, saying it is a WWE level of choreography is probably a stretch, but who knows? I love the NFL and watching football and playing fantasy football. I think nothing short of Roger Goodell himself going on all the national news channels and issuing a statement saying the NFL is rigged will change that. How about you? Well, that's my show this week. I hope you enjoyed hearing my case and some of the evidence I presented to you. Thanks as always for listening, and please remember to like and follow the show on X, Facebook, Truth Social, or you can email me at thepppodcast@yahoo.com.
Thank you for listening to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast. Your source for real news and analysis on politics, prepping, paranormal, conspiracy theories, and the volatile state of the world we live in. Tune in next week and every week for a new episode, and stay safe, stay healthy, and stay vigilant.